Good afternoon, everyone. The 49ers just had their opening day of training camp. No practices, but a press conference, and some very interesting things were revealed. We're going to talk about it. I'm Grant Cohn. That is the newest writer for the Santa Rosa Press Democrats inside the 49ers blog. It's the blog that I wrote for 9-10 years. Now it's Jack's blog. Congratulations, Jack. Thank you for coming on my show.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Okay, so before we get into what Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch said at the press conference today, there is news. Let's handle that right off the bat. Emmanuel Moseley has been placed on the NFL's reserve COVID list. This happened to Jeff Wilson Jr. last year. All these players are tested when they come to the facility, and Emmanuel Moseley this year. What's your takeaway? What's your reaction?
Well, my initial reaction is this is big. This is good news for Ambry Thomas and Diamond Lenore. It's going to give them an opportunity to come in and step in right away for at least the first week of camp and be able to show what they can do. It gives them a big opportunity to maybe, especially for Thomas to put himself as the leader in the clubhouse at that spot. And it's also going to help Dante Johnson out a little bit as well, because he's going to be getting additional reps as well.
If Emmanuel Moseley has to miss 2 weeks, that's not good for him. I don't think Jeff Wilson Jr. had to miss a lot of time. It might have been a false positive test with Jeff. I forget exactly how it went last year. But if Moseley only misses a couple of days, it's no problem. If he was vaccinated and this is an asymptomatic case, he'll be back in a couple of days. If he wasn't vaccinated, he'll have to be gone for a week or two. Isn't that the rule? Am I incorrect there? There's different.
I'm only basing it off of what happened with the head coach in Indianapolis, because he tested positive and he's got to miss a week. He was vaccinated and everything, so he's got to stay away from the team for a week. So first week of camp, not good for Emmanuel Moseley. He's definitely competing with Ambry Thomas, and if Ambry Thomas looks good, then it's going to be his job eventually. So not good for Emmanuel Moseley. Yeah, and the way the Moseley's contract was written, it doesn't cost 49ers much to get away from him. So, he's not necessarily long-term solution that's locked in here for 2 years either.
And one more takeaway. I don't know if Emmanuel Moseley's vaccinated or not. I don't know really anything about this Delta variant, but if he's not vaccinated and he got this thing, it could be serious. I don't know. So I hope he's okay. I hope nothing bad happens and he bounces back quickly. I'm sure he will. I just want to say that. Because you never know. All right. Yeah. So Emmanuel Moseley, good luck. Ambry Thomas, good luck. Very interesting on the first day of camp. Now let's get into the bombshell that Kyle Shanahan dropped. I went up there thinking the news of the day was going to be about Trey Lance. I was like, why haven't they signed Trey Lance yet? And John Lynch gave a little reason, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But then the next reporter just blew me out of the water and was like, hey, Kyle, how are you going to divvy up quarterback reps in camp? And he's like, the way I always do it, because Jimmy's the starter, and there's a bunch of guys behind him. Trey Lance is going to be number 2. It's like he almost referred to Trey Lance as that guy. He got the rookie treatment, and they said that Jimmy Garoppolo is a starter. He's going to get, he said most of the first team reps, but he made it seem like he's going to get all the ones that matter. Buy or sell that there's no quarterback competition in Santa Clara this offseason?
I'm going to buy that there's no quarterback competition in it. And the reason that I say that is the reason that there's no quarterback competition is all dependent on how Trey Lance performs.
Right.
And Kyle Shanahan's been saying that all along. You go back to right after OTAs, he mentioned that in an interview that it's all up to Trey Lance as to whether or not he's going to play. As soon as Trey Lance gets out there and shows that he's capable of playing at the same level or better as Jimmy Garoppolo, or I think maybe in this case it might even be where he's just close to him, then you're going to see a change be made. But up until that point, it's going to be Garoppolo's team, going forward.
Right, and remember, the Niners don't want to cut Jimmy Garoppolo; they want to trade him. Yeah. They don't need to pump up Trey Lance. They traded for him. He's 21. He's going to be here for a while. They need to pump up Jimmy Garoppolo. And so I think we've seen that consistently since the state of the franchise. No one's mentioned Trey Lance's name. There's no need to. He's not going anywhere. You got to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo as much as possible. We used to talk on the Press Democrat forums about the pump and dump with Lukey Walsh, Brody DeWatt. It's a real thing. They did it with Vance McDonald. They're, I believe, doing it right now with Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think they're doing a good job of it. Like if you and I were running the 49ers, we would have this conversation. We got to pump up Jimmy. We got to showcase Jimmy. We don't need to talk about Trey Lance. You know what Harbaugh used to say? Anytime you compare people, anytime you praise one person, someone else gets diminished. Yep. Anytime the Niners praise Trey Lance, people are going to be like, well, what does that mean about Jimmy Garoppolo? And vice versa. Today, all this praise for Jimmy Garoppolo, and people are saying, well, what does that mean about Trey Lance? Is he not ready? No, it doesn't mean anything. It just means the Niners are trying to sell Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah. I agree. Yep. And that whole thing you just said, that's exactly what Harbaugh used to say, and you try to stay away from it as much as you can.
It's true.
It happens. It happens as soon as you open your mouth, almost, and there's two guys involved. One guy's, the questions are brought up about one or the other.
Absolutely. So the way this is going to work, I just want to make sure that people understand. Like they say, Jimmy's going to get the starters reps. Yeah, most of them. But in OTAs 40 days ago, Trey Lance was already getting some starters reps. Not in 11-on-11, but in 7-on-7. He got an entire 7-on-7 period with the starters where he was playing with George Kittle. Threw a 50-yard pass. So I wrote about it. So he's already gotten some. I would imagine that Jimmy Garoppolo will get 90 to 95% on day one, as he should, because he's the starter and Trey Lance is the rookie. That's how they always treat rookies in training camp. You kind of have to start from the bottom, no matter really who you are, unless Nick Bosa didn't really have to start from the bottom. But most guys have to start from the bottom, and they get promoted kind of daily if they do well. If Trey Lance plays well with the ones and 7-on-7, he'll get more first-team reps the next day, and he'll be rewarded. And it really won't matter how good Jimmy Garoppolo is playing. The only thing it'll matter, he matters to his next team. The Niners need to put that out there so they can get a first-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo as opposed to a sixth-round pick. I think that's what this is all about right now. So don't get nervous and think that Trey Lance is going to get buried and you won't see him this year. He's going to get some first-team reps. He's going to get his chance. It's just not going to be talked about. It's going to be he's on the field, and I'll talk about it. But when Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are asked about it, they'll downplay it forever. Oh, he's a rookie. Yeah, we wanted to see it. Jimmy's our guy. We like Jimmy. Jimmy looks great. Have we mentioned Jimmy's body language? The way he talks to his teammates. They're going to go on and on and on and on about Jimmy. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, they're going to do that, and it's going to, this whole thing with Garoppolo getting first team reps and instead of Lance, it's the same thing at right guard with Aaron Banks and Daniel Brunskill. Daniel Brunskill's the starter, but does anybody really expect Daniel Brunskill to be the starter in week one of the season?
Really.
I don't think
you just don't verbally anoint the rookie.
Yes, they've got to get out there, and you've talked about this throughout this whole offseason since they drafted Trey Lance. Lance has got to show that he's capable of doing it for the locker room to buy into that change. And so that's really what they're doing.
Absolutely. So this is the pump and dump. It was really good pumping today. I mean, they made it seem, I think they convinced a large portion of the media and the fan base that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be starting all season. He's looking great, playing great, talking great, just exuding greatness in ways he never has. I think he really has a lot of people, and that's what they need to do, Jack, right? If you and I were on this team, we'd be saying, come on, we're on the 18th green. It's a freaking layup. We just have to say the right things. Let's not mess this up.
Yeah, you've got to do something because they don't want to just get rid of this guy. They've got to do something to build up his value, and that's what they're doing.
And Kyle has he's flirted with messing it up this offseason, going on the Sean McVay podcast talking about Matthew Stafford. That doesn't help Jimmy Garoppolo's trade value at all. All. So today was a little bit of, correcting that. Kyle Shanahan in particular saying, no, Jimmy's my guy. Jimmy looks great. Jimmy looks fantastic. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. All right, get that first round pick.
Yeah. And he's always done a better job of this in these settings. It's always been in this setting where he's kind of done a good job of towing the company line. It's when he goes outside of these press conference settings that he tends to kind of wander away from what they're trying to sell.
I got to say, the Niners have a new PR director. His name is Corey Rush. I met him today. Very nice guy. He had Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch prepared today. I'm just saying, maybe it wasn't the new PR director. Maybe they had themselves prepared, but the whole operation gets an A+. They knocked it out of the park. They did. I think they're handling everything correctly. There's no reason to force the issue with Jimmy and there's no reason to say he's in a competition. We really want to trade him. No, don't do that. Just play dumb. We like Jimmy. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, we traded up for Trey Lance? Yeah, that's for next year. We like Jimmy. You just play dumb.
Yeah.
Because there's one team out there that might buy it. Should we talk about Jimmy Garoppolo's landing spot?
Sure.
I was talking about this with Vish yesterday, and we talked about 5 different teams. If this plays out next year and Jimmy Garoppolo stays in the team throughout the season, a whole bunch of teams could get in on the act. But if he gets traded this year,
there's only one.
I feel like I've had an epiphany. I think you've had it too. There's only one place. Tell me what it is.
And I mentioned this about a month or two ago. I think the only place that he's going to go that has a spot is Houston.
That's right.
They don't have if Deshaun Watson's not their starting quarterback, they have a guy they drafted in the third round out of Stanford who's started, I think, like 9 games in college.
And
he's not going to be and Tyrod Taylor, who, he's done okay in the NFL, but he's never, he's at best a mediocre quarterback. And so that's the landing spot. And he has ties to Houston as well in terms of their front office from New England. So
explain that real quick.
Because their general manager came from New England, correct?
Yes.
So he has that background.
He was in New England when they drafted Jimmy.
Right. And so they know all about him. They know everything about Garoppolo, and they know what he can bring to the table. So he just makes too much sense for them, really.
Way too much sense. So here's the way I feel like this is going, and I think it's obvious. Deshaun Watson almost certainly will not play for the Houston Texans this year. They've already said, he doesn't want to play for them. He's requested a trade. Recently, they said they'll grant him the trade. He also has 22 lawsuits hanging over his head. So either he will spend the season on the commissioner's exempt list while the NFL does their investigation, or Houston will trade him to Miami or Philly or somewhere. It seems to me that this is how it's going to play out. And everyone knows it. So the Niners just have to kind of wait and let the Deshaun Watson thing play out, and then let Houston call them. Let Houston call them and say, no, we want one of those, because they're going to get like 2 or 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson. So we need a first-round pick for Jimmy, and we're willing to pay some of Jimmy Garoppolo's contract, $10 million, $13 million, but we want a first. I don't know if they'll get the first, but I think that's what they're hoping happens here.
If they could get a second, I'd be happy with that. If they could somehow get a second for Jimmy Garoppolo, I think you got to consider that a win and take that and run to the bank with that. But I agree with you.
Was it Brock Osweiler? Was it the Brock Osweiler thing where the team trading him paid money? I forget how that. Anyway, there is precedent of sweetening the deal, right?
Yeah, that did happen with Osweiler. Yeah, and I'm not sure in one of his trades, I know for sure.
No. So if you send Jimmy and pay, you might get a better pick because that contract is an albatross. But I think Houston's the only team that doesn't have a starting quarterback this year.
Well, it's a bad contract in a way, but they're paying it's not that much worse than what they're paying for what they have already. So if they move him, then they replace it with Garoppolo, and then they're not locked in with Garoppolo for a long period of time either. It's they could keep him for 2 years, develop the kid out of Stanford, and then that could be their whole plan moving
Absolutely. Forward. And why would Garoppolo want to go? When I was talking about this with Vicious, I'm like, well, he's got a no trade clause. He's gonna veto that. Well, that's assuming he wants to win. I think Jimmy Garoppolo might be more concerned about making the $27 million. He's a corporation. No, maybe I'm wrong. But if the choice is, go play for New England for like $3 million or go to Houston for $27 million, I think he's going to take the $27 million. And I think Houston is probably the only place that will afford him the opportunity to play for $27 million. And I think they might even extend his contract. They might commit themselves to him for a couple. Who knows? They might just pay him the $50 million for the next 2 years and see where they're at with Davis Mills and him in 2 years. That's a good deal for Jimmy.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's always kind of been, for me, that's been the one spot that makes sense if you're going to move him this year. And as you said, the Deshaun Watson thing has to play out, so they just got to take their time, buy their time, and that's the move. The other part with Garoppolo, we said it's going to happen right as the season starts, right? Yeah, and that's when this is going to all come down, because they're going to have to make a decision on Watson at some point close to the season. I think is what's going to happen.
Okay. Vince says, Grant, do you think Kyle likes you now that you asked him about his pizza oven throw? Kyle doesn't like me or dislike me. Kyle has $100 million or something like that. I don't think he really cares about my criticism or my praise. I think sometimes he finds me mildly annoying and sometimes he finds me mildly amusing. But that's probably the extent of it, I would say. I don't think it's that personal between me and him. Unless I'm wrong.
No, probably not.
I don't think so. No. Okay. This is the question I asked. I asked John Lynch, what's up with Trey Lance? Why hasn't he signed yet? Zach Wilson hasn't signed either. What is your interpretation?
There's a couple of things that play into this. One of them is the offset language on the contract. That's number one. And the second is the percentage of the guaranteed money that they're going to be getting up front. Those are the two things. And you go back and, Joey Bosa had the same deal when he was
right.
Going to
with the Chargers.
Yep, with the Chargers. And it's exactly the same thing here. You're in California, in New York. You mentioned this earlier. So it makes sense to try to get as much of that money up front as possible. And that offset language is important too, because if something happens, who knows? We expect him to be here throughout his contract, as first 4 years. But what happens if he just totally bombs and they want to move on? And if you don't have that offset language, he's going to be stuck with that. So that's
True.
part of it.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. It also seems to me like it's a California, New York thing. I'm not surprised what's going on with Zach Wilson with the Jets too, because I bet their agents are looking at it and thinking, man, there's a possibility that Kyle Pitts in Georgia, Penei Sewell in Detroit, whoever went fifth, the guy in Cincinnati, Jamar Chase, they could end up actually pocketing more money after taxes than my client, and I'll look bad because they're in states that tax less or not at all. That's possible. So maybe they're trying to work that out. And the fact that John Lynch said, we've never had a holdout, the fact that he used the word holdout made me think that there's a little apprehension. Still, I think my prediction is he'll sign like 10 minutes before training camp starts tomorrow. So if training camp starts at 10:17, he'll sign at 10:07.
Just in time to
But if he doesn't, damn, that's what a curveball this offseason. Whoa, a holdout from the guy you just traded all your first round picks for. That would be do it, Trey.
Yeah, they need to get something.
See how that goes.
I think I saw something today too where the discussion was part of the reason with Wilson is he's trying to get like the same percentage of that Sam Darnold got when he joined New York, and so that's part of what it is. So but it all goes back to that same discussion of that percentage of guaranteed money that they're getting to start the.
Marco says Trey will show up to practice if unsigned, book it. Well, he did do that in OTAs. And, if you don't go, if you hold out, they fine you $50,000 a day and you can't get it back. It used to be they'd fine you $40,000 a day. And then when you made up and came back, they'd basically give you a little bonus or basically give the money back. Like, hey, let's start over. But they can't do that anymore. It's against the collective bargaining rules. So you see less. Does anyone hold out anymore in training camp? I haven't seen it.
What you see is you see guys missing
OTAs.
You see guys starting the beginning of camp for this reason. It's not really necessarily a holdout, but it usually takes a couple of days maybe.
Sure.
Can they practice if they don't have a contract? I know they can practice during OTAs, but once training camp hits, does that?
That's a good question. That is a good question. I don't know, and I should know because I cover this sport for a living, but I don't know. So I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
All right, moving forward. More news, non-quarterback news. Nick Bosa, Dee Ford, and Jalen Hurd not expected to start training camp on the PUP list, meaning I don't know how much they're going to play, but they should be in pads, participating like everyone else. What's your takeaway?
Yeah, no, this is huge news, especially the Dee Ford and Jalen Hurd news. Nick Bosa, we've kind of been hearing all along that he's going to be ready to go. But, having Dee Ford and Jalen Hurd being able to come out and practice right away, that's huge news because that those two, especially Ford and Hurd, they can totally shake up the way that this roster gets put together, and Ford in particular, I know we talked about this last week on our roundtable about Fred Warner talking about how he was looking good, and we kind of went back and forth on that a little bit. But it seems like everything he was on the right track with all that, and if they can get Dee Ford back, that defensive line jumps from what we were talking about top 10 to top 5, top 3 in the league if he's healthy and able to go.
Is it fair for me to be a little to just say that like they better be healthy? I mean, Jalen Hurd got hurt a year ago. Bosa got hurt like 10 months ago. Dee Ford got hurt like 5 years ago, or I don't know. Like they've had a lot of time. So, it's good. That's good. But come on, they freaking should be on the field. My question with Ford and Hurd in particular is like, how many practices in a row can you do before you get hurt again? Because with Hurd, it's been like 10 or like, he didn't even get to the practice field last year. And Ford, will he practice at all? Basically, that's my question. Bosa should be out there. He should be Nick Bosa. I mean, he's done the ACL recovery before. It's nothing new to him.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a totally fair question because that is the concern with all these guys, especially Ford and Hurd. Yeah. And from what I heard on the press conference is that Ford and all three of these guys aren't going to be practicing with the team. They're going to be going through individual drills for the first week. So that should help them out with as far as being able to stay healthy. So it's going to be with Ford and Hurd, it's going to be watching how they are once they get to practicing with the team and they start hitting. I think that's going to be the part to keep an eye on is how much activity are they getting as far as full contact.
That's what the Niners did last year with Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed was coming off did he miss a year or I don't? He's just been hurt forever.
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah, he just been hurt forever, and they brought him in, and they wanted to go easy on him. So even though he was healthy, he didn't do much the first week. He practiced, and I called him an elite stretcher. I was proud of that line. He was an elite stretcher the first week, and then he would get into individual stuff, one-on-one stuff, and then finally by the end, he got into full team drills. I would imagine that probably be the same progression for Jalen Hurd. I don't know if D Ford will ever practice again. Maybe it'll be the same progression for Nick Bosa, but for Jalen Hurd, I think he'll get the Jordan Reed treatment.
Yeah, whatever it takes to keep him out, keep him healthy and get him out there for a change. He looks when the one glimpse we got of him, whenever it was his first preseason game, looked good. He looked really good. He looked like a big Deebo Samuel, right?
Yeah,
he would kind of go all over the field but just at a much bigger size. And he's just been an enigma since he got out here. Everybody's wanting to see him play, but he hasn't been out there. So hopefully they'll be able to keep him healthy throughout training camp.
It'll be interesting to see what Jalen Hurd is after all this. I mean, a torn ACL, a back issue. Is he still fast? How big is he? Is he a wide receiver? Matt Barrows asked a question today of George Kittle talking about Jalen Hurd potentially as a tight end. I remember when he got drafted, Kyle Shanahan said he really liked Jalen Hurd because he's the only player he'd ever evaluated who legitimately could have gotten drafted in the NFL at 3 different positions: running back, wide receiver, tight end. So they've already been thinking about him along those lines. They probably felt as a young man growing into his body, former running back, he wasn't really ready to be a tight end. He could end up playing that position for the 49ers, which would have kind of interesting ramifications for the rest of the roster.
I don't think they necessarily need to play him at tight end because they have other guys there this year. They did that with
damn right
with Reed last year, but they have Michael Pruitt, and they've got Charlie Warner in his second year. So I think they've got some other guys there, and obviously they've got Ross Dwelly.
Obviously, yeah.
That's I wanted to save the best.
I was like, yeah, okay, fair enough.
But definitely you can see. At least I would kind of see Hurd as in that same mold as Reed, though, as that kind of a move. What they expected Reed to be is that move tight end type of a player, big slot receiver. He lined up. I think if you go back to that preseason game, they had him out at wide receiver wide at one time, and he went up. Caught it and stuff
in the end zone.
Yeah, he's a guy that you can even bring into the backfield if you wanted to, but I don't think they're going to do that necessarily with him necessarily. But he's a guy that can be moved all over different places, and he's going to give linebackers a fits, especially if he's playing in the slot.
Certainly. Vince, again, thank you, Vince, says, did you notice John talked about soccer training staffs? Book it, they will hire a European soccer training staff next. Bye-bye NHL training staff. That's hilarious. They should probably go with a football training staff at some point. I don't know.
Well, that's where the man's ear for Trey Lance came from, was from the rugby and soccer players, right?
They're almost making the reporters wear the man's ear. We have to wear tracking devices at the facility now just to make sure in case we contract COVID, like they'll do contact tracing. But I asked if it would also track our speed, our miles per hour, and they said no, which I think is crap. I want to know. So, oh well. All right, so good news on those three. Not so good news on Jaquiski Tartt. Everyone was supposed to be healthy for camp, and they're saying that Tartt may not be healthy for camp, that he might start the camp on PUP. And when they say this news, they're always like, yeah, but it's no big deal. He could be off PUP at any time. Man, this is another guy who got hurt like last October, last November, turf toe, still bothering him. That's concerning.
Yeah.
Not just for him, but also the fact that the Niners don't have Tavarius Moore either. And if Tartt can't go this year, they're down to Tony Jefferson or Tavon Wilson.
Yeah, Tavon Wilson,
Talanoa, Hufanga. Yeah.
Hufanga, and then they've also got what's his name, the other one that was back there last year. I think he's back, right? Marcel Harris.
Yes,
would probably be the first.
He's still on the team. Yes.
Yeah, he'd probably be the first man up.
True.
Since he's been there before.
Although Shanahan was asked about this today, and he immediately said Tony Jefferson, Tavon Wilson, which is why they popped up in my head. He didn't mention Marcel Harris or Talanoa, for the record.
Okay. Well, that's important though, because that usually is what their thought process is already. And that's right when the YouTube stream cut off. It was right at that point, so we missed.
Got it. Got it. Big Golden Nugget saying turf toe pushed Deion Sanders into retirement. Did it push Patrick Willis into retirement? He had a foot issue. I don't know if it was turf toe.
I know. Yeah, I don't know if it was turf toe or not, but I know it was a foot injury of some sort.
I mean, I don't want to speak for Jaquaski Tartt, and he might be watching right now, but the fact that it's still bothering him now is concerning. I hope he's okay. He's a very important player on this team. He's the one. I'm always curious. I never believe the team when they say everyone's going to be healthy by training camp. There's always going to be one guy who won't be, and this year it's Tartt. Maybe it explains why he signed for $800,000 this year. Maybe he really, it's a serious injury.
Yeah, that's the whole reason. I mean, he's under $1 million. That's why he went from what he was getting to that amount.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. So good luck, Jaquaski. All right. One more thing, and then we'll talk about special teams. DJ Jones spoke today, and I like DJ Jones. He's gotten a second contract. He is a grown-up to an extent. He's in his mid-20s. They're all kids to me, but he's a grown-up, and he has his own perspective. He's not a kid thinking like, oh, what do the coaches want me to say? He just says what he believes is true, like Jimmy Ward. Someone asked him, like, it's defense. People are saying it's going to be different. It's going to be more aggressive. What are you seeing from it? And he's like, no, same defense. More new attitude, new person giving the message, but it's the same defense, which I thought was so refreshing. Like, you always hear these cliches and nothing answered. Like, we're going to be more aggressive this year. Every defensive coordinator in the history of football has always said that. You never have a defensive coordinator come out first thing and be like, you know what? We're really passive. That's going to be my hallmark. Like, Saleh was like, I'm going to take it back, and we're just going to hang back and just, no. So DJ Jones says it's the same defense, which to me is really smart. D'Amico, this works. You don't change something that's working, especially when you have no experience. I mean, Saleh set it up. All these players know what he did. Just basically do the same thing, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see is a lot of what we saw over the second half of last year. So it's going to be the same defense, but I think the difference we will see is there's going to be a little bit more man coverage in the secondary, maybe a little bit more blitzing, but I don't think it's going to be over the top where all of a sudden it looks like the Blitzburg Steelers back in the 90s when they're coming all the time. But I do think that we're going to see them be very similar to what they were over the second half of last year.
Yeah, like Jimmy Ward got a question. They're like, something along the lines of, are you excited for your new role in this tweaked defense? And he was like, I'm going to be doing the same things. I'm still going to be covering. I'm still going to be doing the same thing. So that's good to know. I mean, if there was a little mystery out there, you were wondering what's this defense going to, it's going to look exactly the same. Now, the reason that they were doing more man coverage last year is because they needed to blitz to generate pass rush. And theoretically, if D Ford and Nick Bosa are back, they won't need to, but it's still nice to be able to switch it up and present an offense different looks.
Yeah, they did that. They did that in 2019 at times. If you're better on the outside in man coverage and you decide that you're going to bring K1 Williams like they did, off the slot or something like that, it's good that you have better corners to handle that. You don't have to worry about getting beat deep and those kind of things. So, yeah, I'm with you on that.
Also, you can play man-to-man coverage with a 4-man pass rush. Vic Fangio did it all the time. That allows you to play 2 deep safeties or an underneath robber defense or double people. There's a lot of things you can do. It seems like good to know what we're working with here on defense. Same thing.
Yeah,
better players.
Exactly. Just tweaking a little bit. It's going to look. We're not going to notice it if we're just the general fan isn't going to really notice anything different by what they're seeing.
I mean, wouldn't you be concerned if you were Kyle Shanahan and D'Amico Ryans came in like the first meeting of the offseason? He's like, all right, we're going 3-4 here. We're going to go 3-4. We're going to go 2 gap. It's like, the hell are you talking about? No, we're not. No, we're not.
We're holding this whole thing up. We're going to go a whole different direction. Yeah, that'd be totally
concerning. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. We'd definitely be having a different conversation at that point. Yes.
So I'm glad it's at least been put on the table, a realistic expectation of what this defense is going to look like next year. All right. Final topic. This has nothing to do with today. And maybe I should have asked Kyle Shanahan. I will eventually. I will ask him flat out. If Brandon Ayuk is your best punt returner, will you let him return punts, or is he too important to your offense? That's a fair question, right? That's the question here. If Brandon Ayuk is the best punt returner on the team, should the Niners let him return punts, or is he too important to the offense?
Yeah, that's a tough question, and what I would like to see him return punts personally. I would like to see him be utilized as a punt returner. And if they're not going to utilize him as their every down punt returner, I guess is the way to put it, at least giving them a shot in the game, every week. If it's every time there's a close
once
game,
or twice, yeah,
throw them out there a few times a game and let them go. I think that would be one of the ways that they can get him out there. And then on top of that, we look at their return game, and I know we look at like the numbers, and in 2019 they were actually better in 2018 on punt returns than they were in 2019. In 2020 they averaged 9 yards per return compared to 8 in 2019, but that doesn't take into account the bad fair catches, or putting your hand up and then the ball drop and you get stuck in bad field position and stuff like that. I think the bigger issue in the return game is on the kick returns, and the fact that they sat down Richie James on kick returns in 2020 and put Jerick McKinnon in there. I think that's the bigger issue, really, because they were a pretty good kick return team in 2019. They made that switch and they went from the upper half of the league. They were the fourth worst team at kickoff returns last year. They were 29th. They were, when you're getting the ball at your 25 or less almost every time you return to kickoff, that's not acceptable. And that's what
every time Jerick McKinnon would get the ball and start running, it was like, no, what are you doing? First of all, you're jogging. Second of all, you're not going to make it to 25. I miss those days. Okay, here's the other thing. If Brandon Ayuk is the best kick returner on the team when they let him return kicks, the thing about Brandon Ayuk, he was a phenomenal kick returner at Arizona State. Also a really good punt returner, but he returned kicks. There's this one where he was against USC where he takes it up to the 30 and spins off a tackle like Deebo Samuel, runs for another 2 miles. I mean, it was amazing. I really think he could do both, and I think he's got the body. He's not like, no offense, Dante Pettis. He's not like Dante Pettis, who was a good college returner, but not built for the NFL game. I think Ayuk is, and it bothers me that so many Niner fans don't want to see this happen. I'm not even a Niner fan. I'm a football fan. I want to watch this. Yeah,
I want to see him get the ball in his hands. He's your best playmaker. It's very similar to John Taylor back in with the 49ers under Bill Walsh.
Thank you.
That's part of why he's in the 49ers Hall of Fame is what he did on punt returns.
Yeah, the idea that Brandon Ayuk is too good to return punts, but John Taylor wasn't. I'm sorry, Brandon Ayuk is very good, but so was John Taylor, right?
Oh yeah, John Taylor was a tremendous receiver.
And there's also Antonio Brown, who returned him forever. He was probably a future Hall of Famer. Deion Sanders did it for a long time. Are the Niners just too conservative in their return game? Is it Kyle Shanahan being like, look, I don't want the punt returner to muff a punt and take away a series for my offense. I'd rather just get the ball.
Yeah, I think they need to take a little bit of risk and get these guys in the game and let them. Like I said, even if it's not every single time, they've got to try to get them in there. At least once a game, twice a game, or in the bigger games throughout the whole game.
If the greatest offensive coach, the greatest coach of all time, who happened to be an offensive genius, Bill Walsh, wanted a playmaker at punt returner and put John Taylor there, then Kyle Shanahan should lighten up a little bit, man. Come on, what are you afraid of? You're clearly not afraid of getting people hurt in practice, but when it comes to special teams, you draw the line there. I'm sorry, man. No one wants to watch River Craycraft or Trent Taylor return punts, even if they do average 8 yards a punt, because they're not going more than 8 yards. We want to see someone return it all the way, all the way.
Yeah,
and I could.
Yeah, or at least get a big one. And that's I'm fine with Richie James Jr. returning kickoffs, but let's get Brandon Ayuk returning punts.
Yeah, unfortunately, well, maybe it was right. They kind of legislated kickoffs out of the game because of concussions. I like kickoffs, but I get it. Punt returns, everyone's like, it's so dangerous. You see the people coming at you, and you can call for a fair catch. I don't remember that many instances of guys just getting blown up on punt returns. Yeah. I don't. I think there's more instances of guys getting blown up running over the middle at wide receiver. That's dangerous.
Oh, definitely.
You don't know where the hit's coming from. It could come from a safety who's, behind you basically, and you're looking at the quarterback, and you run into a brick wall. That sucks. I don't know. Yeah, come on, Kyle. We're asking you, please.
Yeah, the hits aren't even what they used to be back there. Those guys are getting hit, but they're not getting hit like they used to be.
Full-time punt returners return the ball 30 times a season. So that's less than 2 times a game.
Yeah.
Come on. All right.
Come on, Cal, just do it.
Just do it. Will Craig says biggest question is who replaces Ayuk at wide receiver if he does get hurt. That's the thing. Everyone thinks he's going to get hurt returning punts. Who was the last punt returner that got hurt on the Niners returning a punt? Dante was returning a kickoff, and that was the most pathetic kickoff attempt I've ever seen. Sorry, Dante, but it was. You tiptoed. You were tiptoeing up the field.
Yeah, I can't really think of one who's gotten hurt as with a punt return.
Now, in the XFL, there used to be that rule where no fair catches. In the XFL, I wouldn't want Brandon Ayuk returning punts, but in the NFL, I think it'd be all right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Good job, Vince McMahon. That's really what you want. That's good.
Yeah, bring back old time football or whatever he was kept talking about.
Didn't they also determine who got the ball first? It was like a 40-yard sprint to the ball. 2 players went after it, and in the opening game, someone separated. I remember that. I like the
They put the ball. They put the ball at midfield. 2 guys on either end, and they sprinted to see who's going to get the ball first.
You wouldn't want Brandon Ayuk to do that. That's out of the question. But I think he can handle punt returns. Anyway, that's all I got. A quick little reaction show to the Niners news. Tomorrow is practice. That'll be fun. Jack, I'm sure I'll see you there at some point.
Yeah, I'll definitely be there on Friday for sure.
Sweet. All right, guys. I will be jumping on Twitch in about a half hour. If you want to have a little group discussion, ask me some questions or tell me how it is. Until then, I'm going to be posting some articles on SI. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in a little bit. Thanks again, Jack.
All right. Thank you.